Okay, now that we've finished number 5, let's move on to the story problem number 7. So let's move the paper down here a little bit. So for number 7, it states, from school you biked 1.2 miles due south and then 0.5 miles due east to your house. So here's the school, and you go down due south 1.2 miles. Then you go to your house, which is 0.5 miles. It says if you had biked home on the street that ran directly diagonal from your school to your house, how many fewer miles would you have saved biking? So basically, if I had gone this route is what they're asking. So we're going to call that x. So this looks like a right triangle, so we are going to treat it with Pythagorean theorem. So the first thing we're going to do is go through our formula. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now we know a and b, so 0.5 squared plus 1.2 squared equals c squared. So 0.5 squared is going to be 0.25 plus 1.2 squared is 1.44 equals c squared. Now this here is going to be 1.69 equals c squared. The square root of this is going to be c. So 1.3 is what c is, or our x. Now remember, it asked how many few miles would you have done if you'd done the diagonal, basically. So we have to take the original 2 and add them together and subtract it from the 1.3, or the 1.3 from it. So when I add those two together, I am going to get 1.7. We're going to subtract the 1.3 we found and got 0.4. So we have 0.4 fewer miles as our answer. So this here is what it wanted. So you had to do the Pythagorean theorem to get your 1.3 and then take and subtract it from the distance in which you had biked around that path. Okay, let's look at number 8. Now 8 and 9 are asking you to tell me whether it is a right triangle, an acute, or an obtuse. Once again, we can get this by the links. So let's kind of just sketch a graph here, something like this. And let's say this is our 90, and this is our 216, and this is our 234. So let's set it up. A squared plus b squared equals c squared again. A squared we said is 90, so 90 squared plus 216 squared equals 234 squared. So 90 squared is 8100 plus 216 squared is 46,656. And 234 squared is going to be 54,756. Now you know that I've taken time to work this out ahead of time because I knew that this was going to take a little bit of bigger numbers. So moving forward, let's add the left side and we get 54,756. So the two sides match. If both sides match, that means that this is a right triangle. So that means our Pythagorean theorem works on this. So for number 9, we have another opportunity. So this time they give us 1, 1, and square root 3. Now, if we look at this, square root 3, if you put that into your calculator, you're going to end up with a number larger than 1. In fact, square root 3 is 1.732, and then it runs on from there. So we know that that is probably our c. So when we do it this time, we are going to have 1 squared plus 1 squared equals square root 3. Now, since we have not gone through this in a while with the radicals, let me give you a little refresher, and then we'll go from there. When you square a radical, it's the same as dropping the radical completely. So whenever you square a square root, you will drop the radical completely. So this is actually 1 plus 1 equals 3. Well, in this case, if you notice, the sum of the left side is going to be smaller than what the hypotenuse is. So we know that if it was a right triangle, the two sides would match. But since it's not, then we have to look at one of the two other options we have. Is it acute or is it obtuse? Well, if we look back at our rules, it stated that if it is bigger than the sum of the two squares, then it was considered an obtuse. So 2 is less than 3. So in our notes, if you look back, it will say that if the sum of the two squares is smaller than the c squared, then what you're going to end up with is an obtuse triangle. Okay. If it had been the reverse, then we would have called it an acute. This is the end of 9.1, and I will be adding a radical rationalization part of this video to add with your overall homework. So as you go through, you can refresh yourself before you start in on the homework. Good luck.